Welcome back to Lin's Spotlight Daily, your daily scoop of entertainment buzz. How Timothée Chalamet accidentally became Hollywood's newest heartthrob, without even trying that hard. Once upon a time, in a land of abs and jawlines, where leading men were expected to have the charisma of James Bond and the biceps of Thor, emerged a boy, not with bulging muscles or a gruff voice, but with dreamy eyes, floppy hair, and the kind of bone structure that could rival Renaissance statues. That boy was Timothée Chalamet, and whether he planned it or not, he has become Hollywood's reigning heartthrob. But how did this skinny, artsy-looking guy from New York City charm the world? Let's take a ride through his unintentional journey to superstardom. The soft boy revolution. First of all, Timmy, yes, we're on a nickname basis now, didn't walk into Hollywood trying to be the next big thing. He wasn't flexing on Instagram, doing 100 push-ups a day, or starring in explosive superhero franchises. Well, okay, Dune has explosions, but you get the idea. Instead, he showed up with floppy curls, a vintage sense of fashion, and a deep love for indie films. He talked about books in interviews. He got emotional. He wasn't afraid to cry on screen, or off. Basically, he was the complete opposite of the macho man stereotype we'd gotten used to. And audiences went, yes. More of this, please. Timmy was the poster child of what the internet lovingly calls the soft boy, sensitive, stylish, maybe a little mysterious, the kind of guy who would read you poetry in the park and then ghost you for 3 days because he's processing his emotions. But instead of turning people off, this new energy felt like a breath of fresh air in an industry that had been all grit and grunts for far too long. Call him by your name, or just call him Star. Of course, we can talk about Timmy's rise without mentioning Call Me By Your Name, the 2017 indie romance that put him on the map. In this sun-soaked, peach-filled, emotionally devastating coming-of-age tale, Chalamet played Elio, a sensitive teenager falling in love for the first time. The performance was raw, vulnerable, and so good it earned him an Oscar nomination. At just 22 years old, he became one of the youngest nominees in history. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of him. Directors, designers, journalists, even your aunt who hasn't been to a movie theater since Titanic, were talking about that Timothée Champagne boy. He wasn't just talented, he was interesting. There was something magnetic about him, and the fact that he looked like he belonged more in a French art film than on the cover of Men's Health made him even more appealing. He wasn't intimidating. He wasn't trying to be cooler than you. He was just himself. And people loved that. The fashion-forward fairy prince? Let's not ignore the fashion. One of the reasons Timmy stands out is because he wears whatever he wants, and makes it look good. No shirt under the suit? Sure. Sparkly harness on the red carpet? Why not? Velvet, florals, leather, he's worn them all, and somehow it never looks like he's trying too hard. He's like the fashionable best friend who raided a thrift store and somehow walked out looking like $1,000,000. In a world where male celebrities often play it safe with boring tuxedos, Timmy's wardrobe is a refreshing rebellion. And Gen Z is all for it. He's not afraid to play with gender norms, experiment with silhouettes, or wear colors that most leading men wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. He doesn't just attend the Met Gala, he understands it. Serious roles, silly soul. Despite being hailed as a serious actor, Timmy's public persona is delightfully goofy. He does awkward dances, makes weird faces during press tours, and says things like "I just want to go to a haunted house with my friends" when asked about his fame. He's the kind of guy who still seems genuinely shocked when people recognize him. And that makes him even more lovable. When he took on the role of Paul Atreides in Dune, some fans were skeptical. Could the delicate soft boy really survive the harsh sands of Arrakis? Could he lead a sci-fi epic and battle giant worms? Turns out, yes. He brought complexity and vulnerability to a role that could have easily become another bland action hero. He made being conflicted cool again. Wonka and the weird but it works energy. Let's talk about Wonka for a second. A musical prequel about a young Willy Wonka? Starring Timothée Chalamet? Singing? Dancing? Wearing purple velvet? It sounded absurd. And yet, somehow, it worked. His version of Wonka wasn't creepy or overly wacky. He was sweet, quirky, ambitious, and just whimsical enough to make you believe this guy really could invent chocolate that makes you float. Critics were mixed, but fans adored him. He brought a Gen Z flavor to the role, more hopeful dreamer than unhinged genius. And guess what? That's exactly what people needed. Because let's be honest, Timmy could probably read the phone book in a feather boa and people would still swoon. Why we couldn't stop watching him. Here's the thing, Timothée Chalamet isn't trying to be anyone else. And in an industry full of images, filters, and carefully curated branding, that authenticity shines. He's weird. He's talented. He's emotional. He talks fast, gets nervous on talk shows, and looks like he might burst into interpretive dance at any given moment. He represents a shift in what we think a leading man should be. Vulnerability is no longer a flaw. Sensitivity is cool. Being earnest isn't embarrassing, it's attractive. And Timmy is leading the charge, one art house film and product campaign at a time. Final thoughts, is he even real? Sometimes it feels like Timothée Chalamet is a myth made up by the internet. A Tumblr dream brought to life. The human embodiment of an indie playlist on a rainy day. But he's real. He's here. And he's not going anywhere. So whether you're a hardcore fan who has memorized every frame of Little Women, or just someone who wonders how this lanky guy ended up being the face of Gen Z stardom, one thing is clear, Timothée Chalamet didn't just redefine what it means to be a Hollywood heartthrob. He made us all fall in love with a new kind of leading man. And he didn't even need a six-pack to do it. Timmy and his strangely familiar relationship with the public. One of the most interesting things about Timothée Chalamet is how he interacts with the public. He's not one of those untouchable celebrities who live in a crystal castle, but he's not overly accessible either. He maintains just the right amount of mystery to keep things exciting, like a character in a coming-of-age indie film who might bump into you at the local bookstore. On red carpets, he's stylish and poised, but off-duty, Timmy's in flip-flops, a cap, riding a bicycle through New York like a third-year lit major looking for a good bagel. He doesn't stir up scandals, doesn't make wild statements, and somehow manages to avoid being dragged into messy dating dramas, although rumors do fly now and then. Cue, Timmy spotted with Z's, but he stays chill. Doesn't confirm, doesn't deny, just lets fans spiral into fantasy land. Clever move. You could say Timmy's mastered the art of low-key stardom. He's not everywhere, yet you always feel like he's somewhere. Every time he pops up, whether it's at a fashion show or casually walking out of a cafe, the media goes, it's him. He exists. The future of a star who doesn't try to be one. So, what's next for Timothée Chalamet? Will this soft-spoken, poetry-core prince continue to shine for the next 5 or 10 years? Chances are, yes. Absolutely. Why? Because he's not stuck in a box. Timmy can be the sensitive Elio from Call Me By Your Name, the noble and burdened Paul Atreides from Dune, the quirky and oddly delightful Wonka, and, who knows, maybe a jazz musician, an eccentric assassin, or even a mad scientist next? That unpredictability is part of his magic. He's not just a pretty face who can act, he's an artist. The kind who chooses roles not for money, not for clout, but because something about the character speaks to him. That, in an industry increasingly dominated by billion-dollar franchises and clickbait, is refreshing. Thank you for not being like everyone else. So here's a little thank you note to Timothée Chalamet. Thanks for not trying to be the perfect Hollywood man. Thanks for crying on screen when it matters, laughing like a kid, and wearing purple lace suits like you just don't care. Thanks for proving that you don't need six-pack abs to be considered hot. Sometimes, intelligence, vulnerability, and a dash of awkward charm will do the trick. Tomorrow, you might see Timmy in another epic blockbuster. Or maybe you'll spot him sipping coffee in a hoodie that's older than your favorite playlist. Wherever he is, he'll be just Timmy. And that's exactly why people love him. No drama. No ego. Just that soft, strange, poetic energy that somehow makes you feel things. Who's your current favorite Hollywood star? Drop it in the comments. We love hearing from you. This is Lynn's Spotlight Daily, and we'll see you in the next Spotlight.